Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into something important for anyone building, well, anything new.
Yeah, whether it's a side hustle or, the next big thing.
Exactly. We're exploring the core ideas of the lean startup methodology. It seems like you are keen to get up to speed on innovative ways to build things quickly.
That's right. And the good news is this stuff applies whether you're super technical or not, big company, small company. It's pretty universal.
So to guide us, we're leaning heavily on Eric Ries's book, The Lean Startup.
A foundational text, really. I mean, you look at the endorsements. Steve Blank saying teams should just stop and read it.
High praise. And others too, right? Scott Case, Noam Wasserman from Harvard.
Serious people. They all see how significant it is for innovation, for entrepreneurship today.
Okay, so our mission here is pretty clear. Let's distill the absolute must-know insights from Rees, like a shortcut, right?
Yeah, get you those aha moments without the information overload.
Perfect. So let's just jump in. Why this book? What was the big problem Rees saw with how things were being done?
Well, the core issue he identified is that traditional business planning, it just often fails miserably for startups
Defills how?
because startups operate under conditions of extreme uncertainty, massive unknowns about customers, about whether the product will even resonate, right?
You don't know who's going to buy it or why initially.
Exactly. And the old way, detailed 5-year plans, endless PowerPoint decks before building anything, it often leads to what Rees calls achieving failure.
Achieving failure. What's that?
Perfectly executing a plan for a product nobody actually wants. You build it efficiently, but it's the wrong thing.
Ouch. Okay. So he advocates for something more reactive.
More like learn as you go, a read and react kind of approach. The big idea is testing your core assumptions first before you pour tons of resources into building the whole vision.
So forget years of secret development based only on guesses.
Pretty much. And
Yeah.
central to this is how Rees defines a startup. It's broader than you might think.
Okay, what's his definition?
He says it's a human institution designed to create new products and services under conditions of extreme uncertainty.
A human institution. Okay, so not just two people in a garage.
Nope, it's broad. It means entrepreneurs are basically everywhere, even inside big established companies.
Ah, so someone like, let's call him Mark, working in a large corporation, trying to get a new project off the ground. He counts.
Absolutely. Rees uses an example just like that. Mark has resources, a team, a vision, but feels stuck. He's an entrepreneur in this context.
Interesting. And that leads into the principles, doesn't it? That's the first one.
That's the first of the 5 core principles. Entrepreneurs are everywhere. It's a mindset, not just a job title in a small company.
Okay, number 1, entrepreneurs are everywhere. What's principle number 2?
Number 2, entrepreneurship is management. This is crucial. Startups aren't just chaos. They need a specific kind of management.
Not traditional management, then?
No, not management focused on executing a known plan.
Yeah.
It's management geared towards navigating that extreme uncertainty, towards finding a path to a sustainable business.
Right, managing the unknowns, not just optimizing the knowns. Makes sense. What's principle 3?
The third is validated learning. This is maybe the heart of it. Startups exist to learn.
Learn what specifically?
To learn how to build a sustainable business.
Yeah.
And that learning isn't just intuition. It needs to be validated scientifically
Right.
through experiments,
Experiments. Okay. Testing ideas.
testing every part of the vision.
Yeah.
Are we building something people actually value? That's the core question.
And this constant testing, this learning, that sounds like it connects directly to the 4th principle, the big one, the build, measure, learn loop.
You got it. That's the fundamental activity. Turn ideas into products.
Good
Measure
part.
how customers respond.
Measure,
And then learn whether to pivot or persevere.
learn, okay, pivot or persevere, change direction or keep going.
Exactly. And the goal is to accelerate the soup, make it turn as fast as possible. Rees uses the analogy of a steering wheel. It's how you guide the startup.
Keep making adjustments based on what the road or the market tells you.
Precisely. Get something out, see the reaction, adjust. Fast cycles.
Okay, build, measure, learn. And the 5th principle, you mentioned something about accounting.
Yeah, the 5th is innovation accounting. Because startups are learning, traditional metrics often don't work. You need new ways to measure progress.
Progress in terms of learning, not just like revenue in month 1.
Right. How do you set milestones? How do you prioritize work when everything is uncertain? Innovation accounting provides a framework for that, focusing on actionable metrics, not vanity metrics.
Okay, we'll probably need to dig into actionable versus vanity metrics later. So those are the 5 principles. Now, a huge concept tied into that loop is the MVP, right? Minimum viable product.
Definitely. The MVP is central to making the build, measure, learn loop work efficiently.
So what is it exactly? Is it just the smallest possible version of your product?
Not necessarily the smallest. It's the version of the product that lets you complete one turn of the build, measure, learn loop with the minimum amount of effort and development time.
Minimum effort to learn something important.
Exactly. Think about Groupon Start. It wasn't a fancy website. It was like a WordPress blog and manually created PDFs emailed out. Super simple.
But it tested the core idea. Would people buy discounted local deals online?
Precisely. Or IMVU, the avatar chat company Rees co-founded. Their first product was buggy, they admitted it, but it got something in front of users so they could start learning immediately.
So it's about getting real feedback from real people, even if the thing isn't perfect yet.
Yes. The purpose of the MVP is to test your biggest, riskiest assumptions, what Rees calls the leap of faith assumptions.
Leap of faith? Like what?
2 main types. The value hypothesis, will people actually find this valuable? Will they use it? And the growth hypothesis, how will we find new customers? How will this spread?
Okay, so the MVP needs to test those big questions. Any other examples?
Oh, loads. Zappos is a classic. Nick Swinburne didn't stock shoes initially. He went to local stores, took photos.
Put them online?
Yeah, just to see if people would even buy shoes online, sight unseen. That was his MVP test.
Testing that core assumption before building warehouses.
Exactly. Or Intuit SnapTax. A team inside Intuit acted like a startup. Their MVP involved people literally taking photos of their W-2s to test the mobile tax filing concept. Very lo-fi initially.
And are there common ways people misunderstand the MVP?
Oh, definitely. One big one is thinking it has to be truly minimal, like almost useless. No, it needs enough features to run a meaningful experiment to test that hypothesis.
So viable is key. It has to actually work enough to learn from.
Right. Another misconception is about quality. People think MVPs have to be polished.
But you said IMVUs was buggy.
Yeah, early on, some level of lower quality can be okay if it dramatically speeds up learning. Quality matters long term, but speed of learning is paramount initially. Remember IMVU's avatars?
What about them?
Their first version, the avatars couldn't even move. They were static.
Seriously, just stationary pictures.
Basically, it let them test other things. Then, when users clearly wanted movement, they added teleportation first.
Teleportation, like Star Trek.
Sort of.
Oh.
A quick, kind of clunky way to move avatars before investing months in complex walking animations. It was faster learning.
Faster learning, even if it looks a bit weird. Okay. You also mentioned concierge MVPs.
Right. That's where you manually deliver the value proposition to the first customers. You act like a concierge.
How does that work?
The Internet Button Company, for instance. They wanted to sell a physical button that triggered online actions. Before building the whole back end, they just manually did whatever the button was supposed to do when someone ordered one.
Faking it till you make it, basically, to test demand.
To test the whole process and learn about customer needs. Aardvark, the old question answering service, did a lot of manual work behind the scenes early on, too. It's about validating assumptions before scaling.
Okay, so MVPs are all about that validated learning. And IMVU seems like a great case study for this. Their initial plan wasn't avatars for meeting new people, was it?
No, not at all. Their initial strategy, their first big leap of faith, was an add-on.
An add-on for existing IM networks, like AIM or MSN Messenger back then.
Exactly. They thought people wanted to use 3D avatars with their existing friends on existing networks.
But when they put that first buggy MVP out, what happened?
The learning was, well, brutal but crucial. Their assumptions were just wrong.
How so?
Users told them, essentially, we don't want an add-on, we want a new place to hang out. They weren't scared of a new IM client.
Okay, so standalone, not add-on. What else?
The bigger surprise was why people liked the avatars. It wasn't primarily for chatting with existing friends. They wanted to meet new people online using these expressive avatars.
A completely different use case than they expected.
Totally different. So based on that validated learning from the MVP, they pivoted.
They changed direction fundamentally.
Yes. They shifted focus entirely to building a standalone IM network centered on using 3D avatars to make new friends online. The learning wasn't about features built. It was about what customers valued.
And they used experiments to fine-tune even after the pivot.
Constantly. Like that A/B test you mentioned, testing different descriptions, changing avatar chat to 3D instant messaging.
And that actually improved signups and monetization.
It did. Small wording change, but it came from testing and learning what resonated. It shows how validated learning works in practice.
Powerful stuff. Okay, linking back, you mentioned innovation accounting as the fifth principle. How does that help track this kind of learning and pivoting?
Right. Innovation accounting is the measurement toolkit for this process. You don't use traditional metrics that measure execution of a known plan.
Because the plan keeps changing based on learning.
Exactly. So you start by using your MVP to establish a baseline. What are our current conversion rates, sign-up rates, maybe early indicators of customer lifetime value?
So the MVP isn't just for product learning, it's for metric baselining too.
Yes. It gives you the starting point. From there, you focus on actionable metrics,
Okay, actionable versus what was the other kind?
vanity metrics.
Right. What's the difference?
Vanity metrics look good on paper, but don't really tell you anything useful for making decisions, like total registered users or total features shipped. They can go up even if the business is fundamentally broken.
Okay. So they make you feel good, but don't help you steer.
Pretty much. Actionable metrics are different. They demonstrate clear cause and effect. They help you analyze the impact of your experiments. Think specific conversion rates in a funnel, active user growth week over week, retention cohorts.
Things you can actually influence and see the results of.
Exactly. Ruggies gives the example of Grocket, the study platform. They initially focused on total users, total questions answered vanity metrics. They later shifted to metrics that showed real engagement and learning progress per user.
Much more useful for figuring out if the product is actually working.
Way more useful. And these metrics, the actionable ones, are what inform that crucial pivot or persevere decision.
So you run an experiment, look at your actionable metrics. Do they move the needle on the key drivers of your business model?
That's the question. If yes, great, persevere, keep optimizing. If no, despite your best efforts, maybe it's time to pivot.
Change strategy, but keep the learning.
Right. Like Vodafone, the civic engagement company, they apparently went through multiple pivots guided by their innovation accounting. It's a disciplined process.
Okay, so this structured learning and measurement leads to pivots or perseverance. How does actual growth happen in this model? You mentioned engines of growth.
Yes, the engines of growth are about how startups achieve sustainable growth, meaning growth that's fueled by the actions of past customers, not just one-off marketing pushes.
Sustainable. Okay, what are the types?
Reese's outlines three main engines. First is the sticky engine of growth.
Sticky, like getting users to stick around.
Exactly. The focus here is all about customer retention, keeping the customers you acquire. The key metric is the churn rate, how many customers are leaving.
Lower churn is better, obviously.
Right. If your acquisition rate is higher than your churn rate, you grow. High churn, even with lots of new users, means you're just treading water, like filling a leaky bucket. Pointcast back in the day had this issue, lots of downloads, terrible retention.
So step one is plug the leaks, keep users engaged. What's the second engine?
The second is the viral engine of growth. This is where the product itself has built-in mechanisms for users to spread it to others.
Like inherently viral.
Yeah. Think early Hotmail, adding that signature line, or PayPal facilitating payments between users, which required the other person to sign up. Using the product spreads the product.
Word of mouth on steroids, built into the system.
Kind of. The key metric is the viral coefficient. For every user you get, how many new users do they bring in on average?
And if that number is bigger than one?
Then you get exponential growth. Each user brings in more than one new user, who then brings in more. It can explode, but it has to be carefully measured.
Okay, sticky, viral. What's the third engine?
The third is the paid engine of growth. This is more straightforward. You pay to acquire customers.
Like advertising, sales teams.
Exactly. Running ads, paying commissions. The absolute critical factor here is the relationship between two numbers. Customer lifetime value, LTV.
How much a customer is worth over time.
And cost per acquisition, CPA.
How much it costs to get that customer.
Right. For the paid engine to be sustainable, your LTV must be greater than your CPA. You have to make more money from a customer than you spend to acquire them.
Obvious when you say it, but probably easy to get wrong.
Very easy. IMVU managed this well. They found ways to monetize users that others ignored, which let them afford paid acquisition where competitors couldn't.
And the advice is usually to focus on one engine first.
Generally, yes. Nail one engine, understand its dynamics, optimize it. Trying to do all three at once from the start often leads to unfocused effort and poor results. Master one, then maybe layer another.
Makes sense. Focus. Now, this whole system feels very adaptive, always improving. What techniques help maintain that continuous improvement?
Rees borrows heavily from lean manufacturing here. One key idea is working in small batches.
Small batches, like not building huge features all at once.
Exactly. Instead of spending 6 months building a massive release, break it down into smaller chunks that can be released much faster. Think weeks, days, even hours.
What's the benefit? Sounds like more management overhead.
The benefits are huge. You find quality problems much sooner. If you release a small batch and it breaks something, you know exactly where the problem is.
Easier to fix than debugging a giant 6-month release.
Way easier. Plus, it allows for more flexibility, more product diversity. Toyota's manufacturing is a classic example. Smaller, flexible machines versus giant, single-purpose ones. Avoids the large batch death spiral.
Okay, small batches for faster feedback and easier fixes. What else?
Another powerful tool is the 5 whys. It's a root cause analysis technique.
5 whys. You just ask why. 5 times.
Basically, yeah. When a problem occurs, you ask why. Then you ask why that happened. And you keep drilling down, usually about 5 levels deep, to get past the symptoms to the underlying human or process issue.
So not just fixing the immediate glitch, but the reason the glitch could happen.
Precisely. Reeves tells a story about a server failure at IMVU. Asking the 5 whys didn't just lead to fixing the server. It revealed a gap in training for new engineers, which was the real root cause. So they invested in better training.
A proportional investment to prevent future issues, not just a quick patch.
Exactly. It avoids symptom fixing and tackles the core problem. IGN apparently used it for a blog outage too, tracing it back to process issues.
Clever. Any other techniques for continuous improvement?
Continuous deployment is a big one, related to small batches. It's the practice of releasing code frequently, often multiple times a day.
Multiple times a day. Even in, like, finance.
Yeah, Wealthfront is an example Rees uses. Even in a regulated space, they deploy constantly. It means features get to users faster, feedback comes faster, bugs are smaller, and fixed quicker.
Reduces the risk of big, painful releases.
Dramatically. And finally, there's hypothesis pull. This means your product development is driven or pulled by the need to test your hypotheses. You build what's necessary to learn, not just features you think are cool.
So the learning goals dictate the building priorities.
Right. Alphabet Energy used this when developing their thermoelectric materials. They focused development on what would validate their core market assumptions first.
Okay, these all sound great for startups, but how does this translate to big established companies? Can they really operate this way?
Rees argues they must if they want to keep innovating. He points to Intuit and their founder, Scott Cook.
We mentioned their SnapTax team.
Right. Cook realized their traditional management processes were great for the core business, but actively hindered the development of new, disruptive products. They needed a new way.
So even if you're in a large organization, these ideas aren't just for startups.
Absolutely not. The principles of experimentation, validated learning, MVPs, they can be adapted. You need to create space for it.
Those islands of freedom you mentioned.
Exactly. Or what Rees calls the innovation sandbox.
A sandbox, like for kids.
Kind of. It's a protected space within the larger company where internal startup teams can experiment.
What makes it a sandbox?
They get scarce but secure resources. They have operational autonomy within the sandbox boundaries. They have a personal stake in the outcome. It allows them to use small batches, get rapid feedback, and operate like a lean startup, but with some corporate protection.
So mini startups inside the behemoth.
That's the idea. It's about managing innovation as a portfolio, balancing the need to run the existing business efficiently with the need to explore and create the future business.
And fundamentally shifting the focus.
Shifting the focus from just optimizing individual efficiency, how fast can someone complete a task, to optimizing the speed of the whole build, measure, learn loop.
Because being super efficient at building the wrong thing is, well, pointless.
Worse than pointless, it's actively wasteful. The real goal is learning and adaptation speed.
Okay, so wrapping this up, the big takeaway seems to be that Lean Startup gives you a framework to handle uncertainty, whether you're a tiny startup or a huge company.
Definitely. It's about validated learning through experiments, using MVPs to learn faster, focusing on metrics that actually matter, and understanding your engine of growth. It's a scientific approach to creating new things.
So for you, listening in, whatever your role or background, these aren't just tech buzzwords. They're principles for tackling anything new where the outcome isn't guaranteed.
Right. It helps you avoid those big classic planning mistakes when you're facing unknowns. And that focus on learning and adapting, it can make you much more effective with your time and resources. Increase your odds of success, really.
And that leads to maybe a final thought for you to chew on.
Yeah, think about this. How could you apply just the core idea of validated learning to something you're working on right now?
Doesn't have to be a business, right? Any new project or challenge.
Anything where you're trying something new. What are your underlying assumptions, the things you believe to be true, and how could you design a quick, small experiment to actually test one of those assumptions?
Get some real data instead of just hoping you're right.
Exactly.